The reprint policy of Wizards of the Coast is a secret, but it's not a secret in the sense that you'd think. You see, Wizards of the Coast has a policy in place which says that their employees are not allowed to comment on the secondary market. So they don't even have something under which to hold secrets. Just everything is a secret. We basically have no idea what causes Wizards of the Coast to reprint any particular card. As players, this can be difficult, with very popular formats like Modern becoming more and more expensive. So, what is the actual reprint policy that we just don't get to see? Well, they say that actions speak louder than words, and in my opinion, they certainly do. So let's take a look at some of the actions of Wizards of the Coast and decide if we can figure out what those reprint policies actually are. The first reprint policy from Wizards of the Coast that I think is obvious is that they will no longer be reprinting anything of real significance in Standard. We've seen this for the last several Standard sets. They have not reprinted anything of significance, and so I think we can say that that is basically completely off the table. They're just not going to do it anymore. The other action we see Wizards take is the Modern Masters set, and these sets are really the answer to what your question is. What about Modern reprints? Now, in these sets, they have like 6 to 10 cards that are really played in Modern that they reprint. And most of those reprints are at Mythic Rare and Rare. Now, when we look at those, you can tell for yourself that more than 6 to 10 cards every year spike to beyond imaginable heights. So this is not really, in my opinion, an answer to the reprint problem. Especially because it happens every 2 years, not every year. So what is the official reprint policy? Well, in my opinion, the reprint policy is to reprint only to sell sets outside of Standard. It's just a money thing. If they put in some cards, maybe one card, you will actually see a substantial rise in sales. And so they sell cards in order to accomplish this goal. But they do have another thing going on, which I think is very important, and that is that there are cards in Standard where they are pushing the power level enough that they can enter Modern. And that is very important because as Standard cards enter Modern, you would think to yourself, that is going to decrease the price of Modern because all of these cards, which are easily available, printed in large quantities, are entering Modern. And I could end the video there and it would seem like a reasonable reprint policy. We sell sets using Modern reprints, and we don't reprint too much, but we do make cards in Standard that we intend to hit Modern, and that will lower the price overall, or at least keep it stable. I see 2 problems with this reprint policy though, so let's get into those. The first problem that I see is what I would call the premier card problem. Now, the premier card problem is that there are some cards in Modern which have been pushed so far in one direction that you could not print something in Standard which is in any way comparable as to what that card is doing. A great example is Goblin Guide, 1 red, 2/2 haste. Alright, this is an extremely aggressive card, and they will never print anything more powerful than it as a 1-drop in red. If they will never print something more powerful than Goblin Guide in Standard, then anything else is less powerful. There's no such thing as equally powerful between any 2 cards. Another example of this is Tarmogoyf. As a 2-drop in Modern, it is the biggest, baddest green creature that you can ever get, and they will never reprint something like that in Standard, although they got dangerously close with Sylvan Advocate. But you'll notice, Sylvan Advocate, still worse. It hasn't made an impact in Modern, and it probably won't. Therefore, in many decks, in fact, I would say all decks, there are going to be cards in those decks which can never be pushed away by the prints that are happening in Standard. Their price can never be lowered just by adding in more cards. The other problem that we have is one that's just inherent to deck building, which I would call the 4 of a kind problem. Just because you're adding a bunch of cards into Modern which are hypothetically playable doesn't mean that all the decks get cheaper, because they don't take up an equal portion of that deck as compared to the amount that were printed. No matter how many cards that Wizards prints, they won't get a 60 card deck with all 60 cards being different and therefore inexpensive. The next problem that reprints run into is the mythic rarity problem, especially in the Modern Masters sets, which is where we can expect to actually see Modern reprints. So let's take a look at Tarmogoyf. It was printed in the first Modern Masters. It was printed in the second Modern Masters. And when it was printed in the second Modern Masters, right before then it had been trending at around $190. Then it was printed in Modern Masters as a mythic rare, and where is it now? $170. That has done basically nothing to make Modern more accessible. But let's look at a very different card. After all, Tarmogoyf is played as a 4-of in so many green decks. Of course, it's going to be expensive. Now, I'm not defending its $170 price tag, but it's going to be an expensive card. Let's look at a card that was reprinted and saw a great decrease in play. What card is that? Why, good old Cryptic Command. Cryptic Command, before its reprint, was trending at the high 50s. Now, after its reprint, at rare, the most important part about this, at rare, it's now trending in the upward 20s. So you say to yourself, oh, well, it's about half. That is great. Fantastic job, Wizards. You really decreased the price of that card. But when we look at this card, has it really been decreased by half because of its reprint in Modern Masters, a limited print run set? I would argue the answer is actually no. Another thing that happened during that price downward trend has been the banning of Splinter Twin. Now, Cryptic Command was a 1, 2, or 3 of in Splinter Twin lists, which was the #1 deck in Modern, taking up 12% of the metagame approximately when it was banned. Not only that, but Scapeshift has moved away from being a blue deck into being a red-green deck, playing Primeval Titan, Inferno Titan, and the like. So what we're seeing with Cryptic Command is we've got a card that was reprinted at only rare, not mythic rare. It has dropped in its actual play in decks by more than half, and it's gone down in price by less than half. So what's pushing up the price of Cryptic Command? It essentially makes no sense. You don't see them actually cast against you that often. In my opinion, two things. One of them is price memory. Everyone knows that Cryptic Command is an expensive card and you're going to pay some cash for Cryptic Command. People remember that. The other one is that Modern is a format that's exploding. People love to play Modern. People who don't have a Modern deck want to play Modern. And so you've got this format with huge upward pressure and price memory. What this means is with Modern Masters, when you've got this limited print run set, is you can reprint stuff at mythic rare and it doesn't really change the price of the card. You can print stuff at just rare and it doesn't really change the price of the card. Cryptic Command only went down because people are playing it so little. So what's the ultimate conclusion here? The conclusion is, in my opinion, that Wizards sees the ballooning price of Modern. They take very few steps in order to fix that price. What they instead do is take a huge list of cards that have high value, and they say every once in a while, we'll print a very small section of this, another very small section of this. That way they can always be selling Modern Masters for outrageous prices. In effect, even though it's my very favorite format, I don't see Modern getting any less expensive anytime soon. I expect it to slowly grow in price basically indefinitely. Do I think that this will hurt Modern, stop people from playing? Well, I'd actually have to say no to that, because even though the price keeps going up, Magic players are always happy to pay whatever price it is for them to play whatever format it is. So I don't see people playing less modern either. It's really quite strange. And that is where we are with Wizards' reprint policy. Do you like it? Do you not like it? I'm sure I'm not going to get many people saying that they like it, but feel free to talk about it in the comments. Send it to whoever you like. Maybe if enough people see it at Wizards, they'll be like, hey, maybe this is slightly unreasonable what we're doing. And as always, I'll see you next video.